Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Sabrina and I hope you can all hear me well. Okay, I see that we have quite a lot of participants, so I'm just going to get right into it. Welcome to the first session with me. We are going to go over everything related to things you should and shouldn't do in interviews and how to prepare for them. Throughout the session, it's first going to be a completely one-way session where I'm going to just do a sort of a lecture. Please do note everything. And then towards the end, we can have a Q&A session where you can ask me questions. After this session, the few next like 2 sessions, I'll be doing mock interviews. For all of the people who are participants, they have to share their CV. So please be very careful about the things and tips that I tell you so that in your mock interview with me, you can follow them. So first I'm going to share my screen with you. So I hope everybody can see this. You can do a thumbs up.
Yes.
All right. So the objectives of the session is the things that we're going to do. First, we're going to understand the interview process in which I am going to share my personal experiences with the interview, especially with my current job. I'm going to introduce myself properly. Then we're going to talk about the effective pre-interview preparation that you should do. What behavior and gestures and responses should you prepare for in the interview? What to do after the interview? And what are the basic things that you should go over? So my formal introduction, I hope everybody knows. I'm Sabrina and I'm an English language teacher currently working in an international school in Saudi Arabia. Before that, I was working in another international school in Malaysia. I have done my bachelor's in English language and linguistics, and then I did my master's for linguistics. I also have a CELTA and a few other teaching resource courses that are more helpful to me becoming a teacher, especially for language. Now, this interview is not in any way limited to English language teachers, so I hope everybody can take away some key points. And towards the end of the session, during your Q&A, if you think I need to switch my language, you can just let me know. So this interview is being recorded and they will share the interview recording with you, so you can always view it later. So, because this is my first experience working in Saudi Arabia, and I have, alhamdulillah, finished 1 whole year of working. So I'll share my experience with you first of all. But after I had almost worked for like 2 years in Malaysia, I thought, okay, maybe I should move somewhere. And everybody wants to move to Gulf countries because they pay very well and they're very safe, and they have a very good global education experience going on at school levels. So I was like, why not give it a try? And then I came across this platform for my thoughts, and I shared my CV with them. And I think upon 1 month or so, around that time, I shared my CV, I got a response, and there was a school that was looking for English language teachers. I landed the interview, my CV was shortlisted. Now, here's the thing, my CV was Europass because I used to do that before. And Europass is more a detailed CV. It was like, my CV was like 9 pages long, very detailed, has paragraphs and everything written in there. But in KSA, the hiring managers, they are not as educated. Okay, so because they are dealing with administration work, so there's a big language barrier, first of all. And then obviously they don't have the same level of professionalism that you might find in other places. And I'm specifically talking about Saudi Arabia. And it's not just my personal experience, it's because I have seen so many hiring managers over the span of like 1.5 years that I now realize that it's better to make your CV very simple, very short. There has to be a specific pattern that you need to follow. And that's where I took my help from the team. And I was like, can you please convert my CV into like a smaller form, shorter, summarized version where they can read everything. So first things, I hope you have learned that you need to have what subject do you teach in very simple words. So if I'm an English language teacher, whether my major is literature, whether my major is linguistics, whatever my specialty is, I just have to write an English language teacher. And because I was applying for a Cambridge position, so I wrote Cambridge teacher. So then I had my interview. My first, there were two interviews. There was like a series. So in my first interview, it was with the hiring manager. We had, I was selected on the spot, I think maybe 5 to 10 minutes. Under that, then we just talked about random things. I asked them about like what was the culture like in Saudi Arabia, what was the environment. We negotiated on the salary, and then I told them that I'll think about it and I'll get back to them. And I accepted the position. After I think 10 or 20 days, I had the final interview with the whole team, like the CEO, the principal, the administration manager, everyone. And they do a final round usually where they confirm, like, are you going to come with your family? And this is the kind of environment we have. These are the qualifications you have. So do you think you can fit in everything? So there was like a final check and a welcoming sort of session. And that was it. After that, I had to process my documents. Most of my documents were done. So I just had to apply for the visa and I came in. And the whole process took like 1 month, maybe. Yeah, around 1 month. And that's it. And that's how I landed here. And I've been working here since. And my experience is great so far. It's not bad. It's very good. People are kind. If you're going to a new country, you need to adapt their culture, obviously. So be respectful. I have found really good friends. I've found really good partners and colleagues. So yeah, so that is what my experience was. Now, usually what are employers looking for specifically we're going to focus a lot on Saudi Arabia, is they are looking professionalism. They really focus on your language, the way you speak. And I've seen that there are so many teachers that may not be very posh in the way they speak, but because they have a specific way to treat others, they were hired. So you have to have very good communication skills. You should know the way to introduce yourself. You should know how to end the interviews. You should know what questions to ask, because sometimes after interviews, they're like, do you have any questions for us? So you should be able to ask very good, solid questions. You need to have relevant qualification, which basically means that if my subject major falls into anything regarding English language, so I can only be an English language teacher. And then sometimes there are people who are like, I have, like in our last batch, we had one person and they were like, they were from a computer science. They were from an English background, but they wanted to teach computer science, which kind of does not fit, because if you have a degree in computer science, then they're not going to look at you as an English language teacher, even if you have an experience of like, let's say 1 year teaching language. So that's a very important thing you need to take care of, is that please make sure that your qualifications and your experience is relevant to the post you're applying for. Then obviously during the interviews, most of the time, I mean, for all of them, you're applying for international curriculums. And international curriculums follow on modern technologies. So, which basically means that 21st century skills you need to have. You need to know about differentiation. You need to know how to deal with students that are a little bit weak and they might be too hyper. So they ask you questions like, if there's a disruptive student, how will you handle them? If there's a student who does not understand your lesson, how will you handle them? So you need to have these abilities. Then obviously, usually in the next interview, like once one is a professional subject related interview, and then usually they do another interview confirming your values and the kind of person you are, and will you be a good fit. And they ask you questions like, why do you want to come to Saudi Arabia? And this session is sort of like an opportunity for a lot of people to learn that I understand, coming from Pakistan, a lot of us, because of our economic situation, anywhere in South Asia, we want to move to a better place for money, obviously, but we cannot say these things in the interview. It's not polite, it's not nice, it's not good manners. So you need to learn to how to say good things and how to sort of like make an answer that's respectful and it can be nice to hear. Then at the end, obviously, they're looking for confidence and honesty. So you don't have to lie about everything. And if you are lying, please make sure that you can follow it up, because if it's caught, it's a big problem and they don't like that. especially considering, the reputation already, it's not the best. So we have to make sure that we work on it. Now, these are the recommended things that employees are looking for. Now, pre-interview preparation. First of all, whenever a job comes in, so let's say if they're looking for an English language teacher, or if they're looking for a science teacher, please ask the person, whoever it is, that what kind of requirements are you looking for? Like, is it a bachelor level? Is it a master level? How many, like, what's the experience? What's the age limit? What other extracurricular activities or skills are you looking for in a teacher? So make sure you have the requirements, and then read them very carefully, and then prepare your CV according to that. Make sure that in your CV you put all the words that they have put in the job description. Usually you have a job description. So let's say if it's for an English teacher or for a science teacher, and they're asking, let's say English, and they're saying that, okay, we need a master's, we need a young professional teacher, but we also need a CELTA or anybody who has CELTA or equivalent. So you have to make sure that in your CV you highlight these things. Now, obviously, we all prepare anything that's a cover letter. A cover letter is sort of like an introduction and some additional skills or things you want to talk about that you could not share in your CV. That's like a cover letter. Cover letter is like your verbal introduction to the employer. And then there's portfolio. Portfolio is not 100% required, but sometimes they do. Like sometimes during interview, they will be like, can you show us your portfolio? And what does portfolio mean? It means the worksheets that you have ever prepared for your classroom, any pictures of the activities that you have done in your classroom, you can put them all in like one PDF file, and that's your portfolio. So this is very important to prepare, because sometimes during the interview, they'll be like, can you share your portfolio with us after the interview? So that has a great impact, because when they can see the kind of work you're doing, they get like better understanding of what kind of teacher you are. So, and then read your CV. Every single word you need to read very carefully, and you should be able to back it up. So for example, if it says like you have good experience, you have like 5 or 6 years of experience, but then let's say there's 1 year gap between working, and so you should be able to remember that between this year and this year, I was maybe like not teaching. So they will ask you, and you should be able to back it up that this is what I was giving, or in this job, I was doing specifically this responsibility, etc., etc. So you should be able to back it up. So pre-interview preparation, number one thing that I will say, like, let's say you're not doing any of this. Maybe you have an interview like tomorrow and you have no time to prepare. So the best thing you can do is that read every single thing in your CV, like top down, every single thing, every word, and you should be able to back every single thing that you have written there. So if you have written that maybe you were a computer science teacher and you were teaching mathematics for like as a side subject, they gave it to you, maybe because as a substitute a teacher left and they put it on you. So you should be able to remember that, and you should be able to talk about it during the interview. So that's very important. Now, there's a specific set of questions that every single interview I have seen is asking. There's like one set pattern. It's not really different at all, no matter how great the school is, or no matter how new the school is. It's literally the same pattern. Although the words change, but the context remains the same. So yes, obviously there's going to be an introduction. They will ask you to introduce yourself. They'll be like, tell us about yourself. Can you introduce yourself? How would you introduce yourself? Can you tell us about yourself briefly, or briefly describe yourself? Or they will say, tell us about your teaching experience and your qualifications. All of this basically means that you are going to do an extremely short and clear and concise introduction to yourself, where you will not speak of anything extra except your teaching experience and your qualifications, and a very like light touch to anything extra you might want to add. Okay, that's it. I had students, candidates who were just during preparation, they were talking about like any extracurricular works that they have done, and like maybe anything outside work that they have done, they were talking about it. Any experience they had in like, let's say, traveling, their personal hobbies, talking about how they are such a what did they say? Passionate. I'm such a passionate teacher. You don't say these things. It looks very good on paper, but it doesn't look good when you're speaking about yourself and, oh, I'm such a passionate teacher and I think I would be a great fit. Don't say that in your introduction right away. Please give them a concise answer, because please keep it in mind that sometimes the interviews can be literally 5 minutes. Sometimes they can go as long as like 30 minutes. So it really varies. Then another important question they ask, these on the ones that you see on the screen are just 5 of the many. So many of them I'm just going to say randomly. There's one more that they really ask is about your classroom management style. That question pops everywhere. Everybody's asking. I have seen it like in every single interview that I have attended or I was a part of the panel, whether that was not just in Saudi Arabia, everywhere else also. I saw that they ask you about your, because as a teacher, it's very important. So they will ask you about what's your methodology like, or how do you manage a class, or what's your classroom management style, or how do you prefer to do a lesson. So you need to be able to do that. You need to be able to answer that. Now, then there's a question about, they're going to ask you subject related questions, obviously. Sometimes they will ask you, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? When you say strengths, so for example, like I'm a great team worker, I'm able to blend in the class very well, or I have a very good record in maintaining an extremely good rapport with the students, or I can improvise on the spot, even if like I don't have a lesson prepared, I can just prepare it on the spot. These might be my strengths. Now, when they ask you for your weaknesses, you can't say anything bad about yourself. Please don't say anything bad about yourself. Please don't say, I'm not very good in English language, or please don't say, I'm still struggling with technology. You cannot say anything wrong, anything that reflects badly on you as a teacher. So I have some answers that you can give as like a safety net because they don't reflect badly. Usually I tell my candidates to say that because the students are very young and there's a big generation gap, so I'm still learning their slangs and their trends. So sometimes I find that it's a little bit difficult to keep up with the new trends that are coming up on the social media, because as teachers, we refer to it in our classrooms. So that's the only thing that I find sometimes myself at like, I find myself with a problem, or like I could consider that my weakness, but that's it. Never say anything badly about the students. Never say anything bad about the management. Anything that can reflect badly on you as a teacher, because these are like trick questions. They just want you to make a mistake. If you make a mistake, they will be like, okay, throughout the interview, the candidate was fine, but on strength and weakness question, they slipped. Then sometimes they will ask you, can you describe a recent lesson that you did in your classroom? Sometimes they will say, can you tell us about a successful lesson that you had? Sometimes they'll be like, describe a challenge you faced and how you handled it. And all of these are related to teaching in your classroom. So I am not saying to lie, but I will say that even if it's an experience that is like 3 years ago, you can say that recently I had this experience and say it like it was very recent. You need to make your experience very recent. So anything you can also add. So basically what I'm saying is that you can add some details on your own. I know that classrooms in Pakistan are very sometimes different, especially if it's not a very good private school. They don't ask you to follow the proper way to handle a class, like startup activity, main lesson, reflection activity at the end, some kind of like warm-up games and everything. We don't use them a lot. Sometimes we don't even use technology a lot in the classroom, and sometimes we do. So it's okay if you add details on your own, but you should have one answer prepared before the interview. Make sure that there is one example of one lesson that you did, and you need to know the name of the topic. You need to know how you did it. It's like the way you started it, the way you finished it, and then why do you think it was successful. Please always choose a very easy topic as an example. In a very recent interview, like 1 week ago, there was an interview for a teacher for science, and they asked this question that can you give us an example of a successful lesson that you have recently done in your school. Then they will ask you questions like, why do you want to come to our country? Why do you think our school is a good choice for you? Or where do you see yourself in 5 years? Now, where do you see yourself in 5 years is also a trick question. Basically, they're asking that does the teacher want to stay here for a long time? That's it. They're asking if you have any plans that are going to become a problem later for the school. So you have to make sure that you don't reveal your real plans. Please don't say that, well, I plan to come to Saudi Arabia and then plan to work at your school for like 2 years and move on to a better place. Don't be that honest, obviously. Um, Please say something like, I am still working on my plans. I hope to settle in Saudi Arabia. Hopefully, I will be a very good fit at your school. And for now, this is my plan. That's it. If they really push you to answer like, okay, please tell us in 3 years or 4 years, where do you see yourself? So say, I hope that I'm in a stable job and I'm in a stable place where I can live my day-to-day life fine and like well without any problems, and that's it. No need to tell us your plans about doing your masters, doing your PhDs, or if you plan to move to another country, if you plan to bring your family. Nothing. If you plan to get married, please don't talk about this in the interview. So these are a few questions. Now, one thing I forgot to do is tell you a little bit more about introduction. When we do introduction, there's one way people do, which is like an essay. Hi, my name is Sabrina. I am an English teacher. I have done this, like my education is that I have a BS in English and I have a MA in English. I also have a CELTA. I have worked in different schools, and then I start listing every single school. Like I worked in ABC school in this year, then I moved to this year and this school, then I moved to another place, another school, all of this. Or how I like to do my introductions is that I'll be like, oh, well, thank you for the opportunity. You already know my name, but you can call me Miss Sabrina or whatever your name is. And then be like, well, I am an English teacher. Always start with your position, okay, like what you're applying for. So if I'm applying for an English teacher, I'm an English teacher. If I'm a science teacher, I'll be like, I'm a Cambridge science teacher. You can switch Cambridge to I'm an IGCSE teacher for science. You can say it like that also. But always after your name comes your position. So please make sure that that's very clear. Then talk about your teaching experience. I am currently working in Saudi Arabia. Always start with your current position and then go down, because that's how it is in your CV, and they always have your CV with it. So be like, okay, currently I'm working in, let's say, ABC school, and it's been 1 year. Before that, I was working in another school or another place, which I worked for like 2 years or something. Before that, I have, now don't list every single one of them. Just be like, before that, I had worked in another institution and I have multiple range of experience in teaching. For my education, you can say for my qualifications, I have a bachelor's and a master's. Tell us the subject. I have a bachelor's and a master's in English language, in science, in computer science, in IT, in software engineering, in biology, anything. And I also have, if you have any extra certificates, if you have anything that is from Cambridge certified, like for English language teachers, it is CELTA. But for other subjects, we also have teachers who do PGCE. If you have ever worked at like any of the schools, like city schools in Pakistan, they also do like a short, like a lesser form of PGC, which is I think PGCI or something like that. So mention that. Then say that I have been a Cambridge teacher for the past, like, let's say 5 years, and I have an excellent record so far. Thank you so much. Do you think now when you end your introduction, don't just do a full stop and wait. Do it like this, end it like this. That's all from my side. Do you want me to add anything else? That's it. आखिर में आपको यही कहना है अपने मैं इसको उर्दू में बोलूंगी, अपना इंट्रोडक्शन कभी भी फुल स्टॉप पे खत्म ना करें, आप उसको एज अ क्वेश्चन मार्क खत्म करेंगे। तो आप आखिर में ये कहेंगे कि डू यू वांट मी टू ऐड एनीथिंग एल्स, तो यूजुअली दे विल बी लाइक नथिंग, थैंक यू सो मच। लेकिन इससे ये होता है कि आप इंटरव्यूअर को एक अपॉर्चुनिटी दे रहे हैं कि वो आपसे कोई एक्स्ट्रा क्वेश्चन करे, और आपने ये चीज रटी रटाई नहीं बोली है, आपने कुछ सोच के बोला है। सो दैट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। If they after this session, they will share with you, a team आपके साथ एक document share करेगी which has like all the terms and terminologies जो आपको पता होनी चाहिए during the interview. So I'll say a few of them, like differentiation का नाम मैंने भी लिया, then we have peer learning, we have group works, we have inclusivity, 21st century skill, good hands with technology, audio visual aids, like maybe disruptive students, helpful students, all of these technologies and theories, classroom management that you need to learn. बहुत सारी चीजें टीचर्स को ऑलरेडी पता होती हैं. What they do is that instead of telling the term, उसका नाम लेने के बजाय they start explaining it. What explaining does is that it wastes a lot of time during the interview. So instead of, for example, for me, I want to say something about differentiation. Now, differentiation is the technique where you handle students that are weak in your class during your lesson. So instead of saying that, oh, I apply differentiation in my class, I go on, well, I have a technique and I follow it. What I do is that during my classroom lecture, I will have like 2 or 3 minutes where I will give students an activity. And then during that time, I will go to the students that are a little bit weak and I will ask them questions and I will pay them extra attention, or I will give them an extra worksheet that is separate, like a special worksheet, which is easier. So instead of doing this long explanation, I can just say that, oh, I like to apply differentiation in my class. That's it. Or instead of saying like, usually I like to put students in a group or a pair and then I give them activities and then they work like this. Sometimes, one student, I put like a smart student with a weaker student so they can help each other. Long explanation. Say peer learning. That's it. So they're going to share a document with you, and they're also going to share the recording with you so you can go through them. And then in our next session, when I'll do the mock interviews, I expect that the people who will be doing the interviews with me, they will use these terms. It's better to use the terms than to give a long explanation. And I tell you, I promise you that if you get better at using terms and terminologies, there's like a higher chance of you being shortlisted because they know that this person knows all of these things. So that's about the common interview questions. Now, because most of the interviews happen online, okay, so we don't have enough opportunity to see that does the candidate their body language or like their general gestures, because there's a wall, like this is online, so we're looking at the camera. So it's very important that your facial expressions, they are very apparent, they're very bold. So if you're smiling, you're smiling. If you're trying to make eye contact, you're looking into the camera directly. So greeting very politely. Now, because I know there are internet problems during the interview everywhere in the world, everywhere, not just here, everywhere. So sometimes what happens is that the candidates, they start speaking very loudly. They start, which is almost becomes like a shouting. So always make sure that you are listening very carefully, you're answering clearly. So it means, doesn't mean speaking slowly, like I start speaking very, very slowly. It just means that I'm speaking every single word separately. And I speak it loud enough that they can hear, but not so loud that it becomes shouting and disrespectful. Then please remember, I'm saying this again, interviews usually are very short. Sometimes they will finish you in 4 to 5 minutes. 4 to 5 minutes is enough to make an impact. So you have to make sure that your answers are very concise. If you give concise answers, which means like instead of giving long explanations, you have words that are describing you, you can put in a lot of things. But if you're describing every single thing, it takes a long time and it does not give you enough time to go on to your other aspects. Maybe you want to talk about your management skills. Maybe you want to talk about your, let's say, good record with examinations. but you don't have enough time because the interviewers don't have just you. There's a long list of candidates. There's too many people. So you have to make sure that you are concise, but you're using the right words. Then, recently, though, in the interview, there was one person who was speaking everything perfect, but the voice was like, I forced that person to come to the interview. So make sure that your voice is like nice and it shows enthusiasm, like not too excited, but like it's there that you want to be here. Nobody forced you to be here. So it should look through your voice that you are here, you're present, and you're active. Then obviously, sometimes during the second interview, when they're finalizing everything or when they're just having regular conversation, they will be like, do you have any questions? Always ask questions. Ask questions about the school, like the classroom style, ask about the technologies that they use, ask about the environment. Maybe you can ask about the terms, like how many semesters are there in 1 year, like usually 2 to 3 semesters. What about final exams, midterm exams? What about lesson plannings? Does the school have like one way of doing it? So you have multiple questions that you can ask. So always ask questions. Never be like, yeah, no questions, thank you so much, and finish it, because it gives some opportunity to the person who is interviewing you. They can see that you're not just somebody who's doing everything like memorizing. It's not that, but you have thoughts, you're confident, and you know what you're doing. So yes, now this meeting will finish in like around 2 minutes. So you will rejoin with a new link, or I don't know, they will share the link with you and then just join it again and we will continue. Until then, if it stops, we will just continue from where we left off. So no need to get worried. Now, let's quickly go over the don'ts, the things you cannot do. First one, sometimes situations can be bad. I know sometimes you're working in schools, in colleges, in workplaces that are not nice to us. They're not good. They don't pay very well. Sometimes they pay late. Sometimes they're very rude. The management doesn't take care of you. There are so many problems, but you can never say that in the interview. Even let's say you're leaving your current job because you had some problems with them, because they're not very good. You can never ever say anything about that in your interview, because the moment you do, they will never shortlist you for the final interview. Because it's like, if you can speak bad about your past employers, it means you can also speak badly about your future employers to other people, and that's a negative reputation. No school wants that, especially from foreign teachers. So it's very important that you never talk about your problems especially regarding your pay, regarding your colleagues, regarding the way the management kind of deals with you. Please never speak about it during your interview. Then try not to interrupt them. Usually, the Saudi people, when they're speaking, they have a very hard accent because they speak Arabic. So it's already very difficult to understand them sometimes. So listen very carefully. Try not to interrupt. When they finish, then answer. Even if you don't understand the question, don't interrupt. Wait for them to finish and then be like, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Can you repeat? Then another important thing is you cannot overshare. Don't go into too much details unless they ask you questions. Like one of the candidates started telling me that in their introduction they said that they're single. Never talk about your marital status during your interview. Never tell us any private details about your family, like what do your parents do, or like how many siblings do you have, an exact, unless they ask, and it's very important. Never tell them like what every single sibling is doing, or what are your like private details that you have had in past or future. So never overshare, please. And then obviously, please don't lie. Don't lie too much.